This little video will probably be watched by die-hard diecasters first. I am an absolute novice at restoring, repairing, transforming Dinky toys, Corgi toys or any other diecast models. I do, however, have a long history of restoring antiques of all sorts and all materials. This Corgi split window 1963 Chevrolet Corvette was a Christmas gift when I was approximately 6 years old. It was definitely my favorite toy car, but although I played with it a lot, I never really liked the color from the inside and the color on the outside. Many times I thought about repairing, restoring, or just repainting this car, but I never really got to it. Recently I found a similar Corvette in the flea market for around $9, so I decided to give my old baby a nice makeover in the color scheme that I would like. The flea market purchase, however, was in a much better condition than the original car that I owned since I was 6 years old, so I decided to do up my old car and leave this one in the good condition as it is. However, looking at the side-by-side comparison, I noticed that the better looking car had a slightly different color of maroon red or whatever the name for that particular color is. This is where I first suspected that the car may have been repainted already somewhere during its lifetime. Being an antiques restorer for about 35 years, I dare to say I was suspicious right away, because too good is too good. So this was the moment that I decided to leave the old car as it was and have the new car as the project for the reworking. After watching many YouTube restoration videos with diecast models, I decided to give it a try and see what I learned from that, and probably using only the things that I have available in my workshop, and see if I can do the little trick. So having said that, the first thing I need to do is take the car apart, which means drilling out the rivets and see what is the next step and what the condition of the car is in total. For that reason, I had my vise ready with some cardboard protection pieces and started drilling out the pieces. First I used a center punch to have some starting, and from there on I tried to get a clean drill out of the rivets, which in the beginning was slightly difficult because I wasn't using a sharp enough drill, but in the end it all worked out fine and I was able to separate the bottom from the top of the car. After I got the right drill and the holes came up, I just had to be careful not to drill too fast or have too big of a hole and damage the bottom of the car. I also wanted to have a good starting point for a smaller hole in order to get the little screws in that I had planned to use for this project in order to put them back together in a later stage. After I've got the rivets out of the way, the car came loose very easy, and it was very simple to separate the bottom from the top. The interior is basically in excellent condition, so other than having to work on it in regard to the colors, there was not much work to do. From what I've seen on YouTube, this is definitely one of the easier models, but it's still interesting to see the components that are used in this particular model. I never really understood why Corgi decided to give the car a yellow interior, and I also had a problem with the little golf set that was in the car. The proportions were not right and it looked kinda silly, so we need to get rid of that first. Because the interior is molded solid, it was easy to grind and sand off the little golf set. This worked fine. I got rid of the golf set and a little hand sanding did the rest. The next step is to deal with the axles, the wheels and the tires. I wanted to remove the tires, so I decided to warm them up a little bit to overcome braking. After that, I am able to shine up the rims and clean the axle wherever it is necessary. That worked out pretty good. After I put the axle in the little handrail, I tap it a little with a hammer so it's real tight and turns around while I sand it with steel wool. It's a 000 steel wool. Because the rims were basically in very good condition, there was nothing to it and it went very quick. After this they absolutely looked like new, and I was ready for my next task, putting the little self-tapping screws in. These hard steel screws I reclaimed from an old computer that I once took apart. Now I'm testing to see if the screws fit good, if the holes are deep enough, and if the heads of the screws are flush with the underside of the model. So now it's time to strip the body and the underside. The stripper I'm using is a layer by layer stripper. It takes a little longer, which I use normally for my furniture. I also noticed now that the car definitely had been overpainted, which was interesting and confirmed my first thoughts. This particular stripper works great for me normally because when using on wood it doesn't require any water washing afterwards, which keeps the grain of the wood closed. On my diecast models this might not be the very best solution, but in the end it worked out perfectly. I must honestly say this is not the most exciting part of the job, but when you see the end result, it is pretty satisfying. So here we have all the cleaned components, and now we are ready to start painting. And I like to highlight the fact that I decided to take the little diamond-shaped lights out of the little light bar. After vigorously shaking this can, I'm going to use this all-purpose primer for the first layers of protective coating. I always use this primer on metals that I have in my workshop. I restore lights and lamps, and I have never had any problem with this particular coating. The good thing is it dries very quick. After putting this first primer on, I noticed some irregulars in the casting. I was able to take them out by using a file and some sandpaper, and then I could continue with putting the remainder of the primer on. My spray paint cabin is nothing more than a huge cardboard box that I've been using for many years, and in order to warm everything up I'm using a 500 watts working light. It scuffs enough heat but doesn't melt any plastics. I decided to paint my model in black, and for the first coat in color I'm using a matte black as a base coat to cover everything and have a good base for the later clear coating. Again, I'm using an all-purpose paint that we bought at a local store. It is very good, it covers great, and it does dry very quickly. After the color paint, I will now use a high gloss clear paint from the same brand. It also dries very quick, and I'll probably use 2 or 3 layers. That turns out pretty good, and I must say it all has a beautiful shine. The next step is getting rid of that ugly yellow interior. I'm using the old matte black in order to get a more realistic look from the outside. For the next step, we're going to take care of the chrome, which had been worn through and looked yellow. I'm using a standard chrome paint that I also had available in my workshop, and that will do the trick to make it look good. While the paint is drying, I decided to take care of the tires. The tires are dull but in good shape, but I like to have a little white line on the side of the tires. In that, I needed to create something to do this perfect. I used a white marker and I created a little mask in order to be able to do that. It turned out pretty good. With all the pieces painted now, it was time to do a little detailing. I wanted to have some chrome details on the windows, I wanted to have the logo on the back being painted, and I wanted to make the interior look slightly better than it was. I also had to add the diamond shaped lights to it, and here you see all the parts painted and ready to be put together again. Well, here is the model, totally assembled, and I must say it looks pretty good. I still leave the screws as they are because I am prepared to take it apart again to give the outside an extra polish, because I found some blemishes that were not to my liking, but I will wait till the lacquer is hard enough to do this. But for the moment, this is the end result and I'm very happy with what it looks like. As I said, this was my first project and I've learned a lot. And I also have gained much more respect for other die-cast toy car restorers, especially the ones that film it. It takes a lot of time to get some good shots, and it was definitely a lot of fun to do this. If any of you guys out there have any recommendations or any suggestions that may improve my skills, I look forward to seeing them in the comment section under this little film. If you liked it as much as I did, please give me some likes and I will give it another shot. You can subscribe if you like. I'll be back.